My name is Amber Sullivan, and at 28 years old, I never expected to find myself in a battle with my own family. Growing up as the forgotten middle child, I was used to disappointment, but this time was different. When I discovered my family had planned a lavish Hawaiian vacation without me, I spent months saving every penny from my nursing job. Then came the devastating blow. "You canceled my trip," I asked my father. "You were never invited," he laughed cruelly. His words shattered me, but what I did next changed everything. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If my story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of standing up for yourself. I grew up in a modest, suburban home in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with my parents' older brother Travis and younger sister Ashley. From my earliest memories, I sensed something was different about how my parents treated me compared to my siblings. While Travis was the golden boy who could do no wrong, and Ashley was the precious baby girl who needed protection, I was simply there. The forgotten middle child who seemed to blend into the background of our family portraits. My childhood bedroom was the smallest in the house, tucked away at the end of the hallway. While Travis had the latest gaming systems and Ashley's room was decorated like a princess suite, mine remained plain with second-hand furniture. I told myself it didn't matter that material things weren't important, but deep down, I knew the difference in our rooms reflected something deeper. The pattern of being overlooked became clearer with each passing year. When I turned 8, my parents forgot my birthday entirely. I sat at the breakfast table waiting for acknowledgement, but everyone rushed about their morning routines without a word. At dinner, I finally gathered the courage to remind them. My mother gasped, putting her hand to her mouth, while my father simply shrugged and said, "We'll get you something next weekend." Travis got a 3-day celebration for his birthday that same year, and Ashley had a professional party planner for hers. School achievements highlighted the disparity even more. When I brought home straight, as in 6th grade, my report card remained on the kitchen counter for days without comment. When Travis got a single B+ on his report card, my parents took him out for a special dinner to console him about the disappointment. And when Ashley struggled with math but managed to get a C-, they praised her for weeks about her perseverance. Family photos told their own story. In our living room, the walls were covered with framed pictures of Travis's football games and Ashley's dance recitals. My science fair win, despite taking first place at the state level, earned a small frame tucked on a bookshelf behind decorative vases. Sometimes I'd reposition it just to see if anyone noticed. They never did. Family vacations during those years were rare but revealing. When we did travel, I'd often find myself alone at hotel pools while my parents attended Travis's tournament games or watched Ashley's performances. I became self-sufficient out of necessity, learning to enjoy my own company and make friends with other kids who seemed similarly adrift. By 16, I had accepted my place in the family hierarchy. I focused on school, knowing education was my ticket to independence. While my parents paid for Travis's college visits to prestigious universities and started saving for Ashley's future dance academy, I researched scholarships and worked part-time at a local pharmacy, squirreling away every dollar I could. At 18, I moved out to attend nursing school in Chicago. My parents seemed almost relieved to have one less child to worry about. They helped Travis move into his dorm with a new laptop television and enough spending money to last the semester. My departure consisted of borrowing a neighbor's pickup truck and having my best friend Jordan help me move my few belongings. My parents were too busy that weekend with Ashley's dance competition. Nursing school was brutally difficult without family support. I worked night shifts at a convenience store, studied during breaks, and lived on ramen noodles and coffee. Meanwhile, Travis dropped out of college after 2 years, but continued receiving financial support to find himself. Ashley attended an expensive private art school where she changed majors 3 times, with my parents covering every cost without complaint. Despite everything, I graduated with honors and secured a position as a pediatric nurse at Chicago Memorial Hospital. The day I got hired, I called home with the news. My mother said, "That's nice, dear," before quickly changing the subject to Ashley's latest performance. It stung, but I was used to it. I established my life in Chicago, creating a small but comfortable one-bedroom apartment filled with second-hand furniture and plants. I made friends with coworkers and kept in touch with Jordan, who had moved to Indianapolis but remained my strongest supporter. I dated occasionally, but found it difficult to trust people enough to let them get close. Years of family dynamics had taught me that love was conditional, based on some mysterious criteria I could never seem to meet. Over the years, I maintained contact with my family despite the pain. Monthly phone calls with my mother, occasional text exchanges with Ashley, and obligatory holiday visits when I could get the time off. Each interaction left me emotionally drained, but hopeful that someday things might change. I kept trying to prove my worth, sending thoughtful birthday gifts and remembering important events in their lives even when they forgot mine. Last year, I decided to make a more concerted effort to heal our relationship. I sent cards for no reason, called more frequently, and even drove home for weekend visits when my schedule allowed. My efforts were met with the same polite indifference I'd grown accustomed to, but I persisted. I thought if I just tried hard enough, showed enough love, eventually they would see me. Then came the Instagram post that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening in March, when I was scrolling through Instagram during my break at the hospital. Ashley had posted a selfie with the caption, "60 days until Hawaii, with the fam shopping for new bikinis. Today, number, family vacation number, Hawaii number, can't wait to escape." I stared at the phone, my coffee growing cold beside me. Hawaii. A family vacation. Why hadn't anyone mentioned this to me? My first thought was that perhaps it had slipped their minds to invite me, as had happened with smaller family gatherings in the past. I quickly typed a comment. "This looks amazing. I didn't know about this trip. Fill me in on the details." Ashley responded almost immediately with a vague, "Oh, it's been in the works for a while. Talk to mom and dad." Something about her response felt off, but I pushed the feeling aside. A family vacation to Hawaii sounded incredible, especially after the grueling winter we'd had in Chicago. I hadn't taken a real vacation in 3 years, too busy establishing my career and paying off student loans. The thought of warm beaches and family time filled me with unexpected excitement. That night, I reviewed my finances. I had been saving for a new couch, but that could wait. Between my regular savings and the small bonus I'd received for working holiday shifts, I could afford the trip if I was careful. I immediately began researching Hawaii, staying up until 2 in the morning, looking at activities in Maui, which I'd gathered was their destination from Ashley's subsequent posts. The next morning, I requested time off work, explaining to my supervisor that a family vacation had been planned. Susan, my supervisor, seemed pleased. "It's about time you took a break, Amber. You've covered everyone else's holidays for years." With the time off approved, I felt committed. I created a detailed budget for the trip and started setting aside a portion of each paycheck. I even picked up 2 extra weekend shifts to add to my Hawaii fund. The thought of this trip became a bright spot during long hospital shifts and lonely evenings. I went shopping for the first time in months, buying 2 new swimsuits, sandals, and a sun hat. I even splurged on a waterproof case for my phone to take underwater photos. Each purchase was carefully considered and budgeted, unlike my siblings, who shopped freely with my parents' credit cards well into their 20s. My enthusiasm grew as I researched Hawaiian culture and attractions. I created a document titled Hawaii Family Trip Ideas, with suggestions for activities everyone might enjoy. I found a luau that got excellent reviews, a family-friendly hiking tour of a volcanic national park, and a sunset dinner cruise that would be perfect for my parents' upcoming anniversary. I even researched restaurants that would accommodate Ashley's ever-changing dietary restrictions. 2 weeks after discovering the trip, I called my mother for our usual Sunday chat. I waited until the end of the conversation to bring it up casually. "So I saw Ashley's post about Hawaii. It sounds wonderful." There was a pause on the line. "Oh yes, we're quite looking forward to it. I've already requested time off work. Do you know which resort you're staying at? I want to make sure I book the same place." Another pause, longer this time. "Oh, Amber, I'm not sure Well, we've had these plans for some time. It's a bit complicated with the reservations." Her evasive response set off alarm bells, but I pressed on. "That's no problem. I'm happy to book separately and meet you there. What are your exact dates?" "I'll have to check with your father. He handled all the arrangements. Why don't you talk to him directly?" Now, I was certain something was wrong. My mother never suggested I speak with my father about logistics. She was the family planner, the one who coordinated everything. I agreed to call him a knot forming in my stomach. I waited until the next evening to call my father, rehearsing what I would say. I wanted to sound casual, not accusatory. When he answered, his voice had the same distracted tone it always did when I called, as if I was interrupting something more important. "Dad, I'm calling about the Hawaii trip. I've taken time off work and saved up, but I need the exact dates and resort information to finalize my booking." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Then came the sound I least expected: laughter. My father was laughing. "You're not serious, are you? This trip is for family only." His words hit me like a physical blow. "But I am family," I said, my voice suddenly small. "You know what I mean, Amber. This is for your mother, me, Travis, his wife, and Ashley. It's been planned for months. You were never invited." I struggled to find words. But why wouldn't I be invited to a family vacation? He sighed, impatience evident in his tone. "Look, we can't always include everyone in everything. You're busy with your job in Chicago. You have your own life there. This trip is for the family members who are actually involved in our daily lives." I try to be involved. I protested, hating the pleading quality in my voice. I call, I visit, whenever I can. It's not the same, and you know it. Travis and Ashley make an effort. You left. I left for college, just like Travis did. "It's different," he said dismissively. "Anyway, the arrangements are made. 5 people, 5 tickets. The resort is booked. Everything's paid for." I could pay for my own ticket, I offered desperately. "I've been saving." His laugh returned, crueler this time. "That's not the point, Amber. This trip isn't about money. It's about family, and frankly, you haven't been a real part of this family for years." The conversation ended shortly after, with my father dismissing my hurt feelings as an overreaction. I sat in my apartment, phone still in hand, tears streaming down my face. All the excitement, the planning, the saving, the shopping, all for nothing. Worse than nothing. It had all led to this moment of crystal clarity in their eyes. I wasn't really part of the family. As the shock began to wear off, another emotion surfaced through the hurt: anger. White-hot, unfamiliar anger that made my hands shake. For the first time in my life, I didn't immediately accept their exclusion. Instead, I began to contemplate how I might make them understand exactly how it felt to be left out. After hanging up with my father, I collapsed onto my couch phone, clutched in my trembling hand. The tears came in, waves alternating between silent streams and gut-wrenching sobs that left me gasping for air. The cruelty of his laughter echoed in my mind, punctuating the finality of his words. You were never invited. 28 years of similar rejections flashed through my mind. The time they forgot to tell me about Thanksgiving dinner being moved to my aunt's house, leaving me to arrive at an empty home. The graduation party they threw for Travis with extended family, while my college graduation warranted only a quick dinner at a chain restaurant. The Christmas when my gift was still in the store bag, while my siblings' presents were beautifully wrapped. I called Jordan barely coherent through my tears. She answered on the second ring, immediately concerned. They're going to Hawaii, I choked out. All of them. Without me. They never planned to include me. What Jordan's voice rose in disbelief. Your whole family, without even telling you. I recounted the conversation with my father, his laughter, his dismissal of my place in the family. That's beyond messed up, Amber Jordan, said her voice tight with anger on my behalf. You need to confront them all. This isn't just thoughtlessness anymore. This is deliberate exclusion. What would be the point, I asked, exhaustion seeping into my bones. They've made it clear where I stand. The point is, standing up for yourself. You deserve better than this treatment. We talked for over an hour, Jordan's outrage gradually kindling my own sense of injustice. By the time we hung up, the initial shock had worn off, leaving a hollow feeling in my chest. Sleep eluded me that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying not just the conversation with my father, but countless interactions throughout my life. Around 3 a.m, I reached for my laptop and began a deep dive into social media that I had always avoided before. I found photos of a trip to Florida from 2 years ago, all 4 of them posing on a beach. I had called home that weekend and my mother said they were just having a quiet weekend at home. There was a ski trip to Colorado last winter, when I was told everyone was too busy to talk on the phone. Countless dinners out, weekend getaways and celebrations, all without me, all deliberately hidden from me. As dawn broke, I discovered something even more hurtful. In a group text that Ashley had accidentally included me in months ago, I scrolled back and found messages about the Hawaii trip planning. Travis had actually asked, "What about Amber?" To which my father replied, "She won't expect to be invited. She never complains." My brother had considered me, however, briefly, but accepted my exclusion because I never complain. My lifelong strategy of quiet acceptance of not making waves had only reinforced their belief that excluding me was acceptable. A dangerous idea began to form in my mind. I paced my small apartment, alternating between dismissing the thought as petty and embracing it as justified. I had always been the good daughter, the one who never caused problems, who accepted whatever scraps of attention they offered. Where had that gotten me? I remembered helping my father book flights for a business trip last Christmas when I was home visiting. He had struggled with the airline website, and I had patiently walked him through the process. He had used the same password he used for everything. Travis Ashley 2000, a combination of my siblings' names and their birth year. I had noticed at the time, but said nothing about the obvious omission of my name. With trembling fingers, I opened my laptop again and navigated to the airline website. I hesitated at the login screen, my conscience battling with my hurt. Was I really considering this? I had never done anything remotely vengeful in my life. I was the person who apologized when others bumped into me, who let people cut in line, who covered shifts for coworkers even when inconvenient. But something had broken inside me during that phone call with my father. A lifetime of being overlooked, forgotten, and now deliberately excluded had finally reached a breaking point. I typed in my father's email and the password. To my surprise, it worked immediately. There they were. 5 round-trip first-class tickets to Maui, departure date May 15th. My parents Travis and his wife Laura and Ashley. The confirmation showed they had been booked 3 months ago, long before I had even discovered the trip was happening. My finger hovered over the Manage Booking button. I could see the total cost, $12,340 for all 5 tickets. An extravagant expense that my budget-conscious father had deemed worthwhile for everyone except me. I closed the laptop without taking action, needing time to think. I went through my shift at the hospital in a fog, narrowly avoiding medication errors twice due to my distraction. My supervisor noticed and asked if everything was okay. I blamed it on a headache and promised to be more careful. That night I called my mother under the pretense of asking about an old family recipe. During our conversation, she mentioned they were so looking forward to getting away, but never once acknowledged the Hawaii trip, specifically, or my exclusion from it. The deliberate omission cemented my resolve. I set my alarm for 3 in the morning, when I knew everyone in my family would be asleep. I would have hours before anyone noticed what I had done. As I drifted off to an uneasy sleep, I felt a strange calm replace the hurt and anger. For once in my life, I was going to make my presence known by my absence. My alarm jarred me awake at 3 in the morning. For a moment, I lay disoriented in the darkness of my bedroom, the events of the past few days flooding back. I reached for my phone to silence it, then sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. This was it, the moment of decision. I padded quietly to my living room, as though someone might hear me, though I lived alone. My laptop sat on the coffee table, where I'd left it closed, but waiting. I made a cup of tea, first giving myself time to reconsider. Was I really going to do this? Was I prepared for the consequences? Steam rose from my mug as I opened the laptop, the blue light harsh in my darkened apartment. I navigated to the airline website again, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I entered my father's email and the password Travis Ashley 2000- and held my breath. It still worked. The booking appeared immediately on the screen. 5 first-class tickets to Maui, departure date just 3 weeks away. I clicked on the reservation to see the full details. They were scheduled to leave from Milwaukee at 10:30 in the morning, arriving in Maui by late afternoon local time. Their return flight was 8 days later. The total cost, displayed in the corner of the screen, $12,340. I scrolled through the passenger information. Richard Sullivan, Margaret Sullivan, Travis Sullivan, Laura Sullivan, Ashley Sullivan. A perfect family unit. No room for Amber Sullivan, the forgotten middle child. I took screenshots of all the reservation details, a kind of evidence of my exclusion. Then I navigated to the Manage Booking section and found the option to cancel the reservation. A warning appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel this booking? This action cannot be undone. My finger hovered over the button. In this moment, I could choose to be the bigger person, to accept once again that my family did not value me the way I valued them. I could close the laptop, go back to bed, and continue my life as the perpetually excluded daughter, the safe choice, the expected choice. Or I could, for once, make them feel a fraction of the disappointment and exclusion I had felt my entire life. I thought of my father's laugh when I asked about joining them. You were never invited. The casual cruelty still stung. I clicked Yes, cancel reservation. A processing screen appeared. Then a confirmation, your reservation has been canceled. A refund will be processed to the original form of payment within 7 to 10 business days. A strange calm washed over me. I had expected to feel triumph or satisfaction, but instead I felt oddly detached, as if watching someone else take this action. I knew the money would be refunded to my father's credit card, so they weren't losing the funds, just the trip as they had planned it. But I wasn't finished. I remembered my father mentioning they had reserved rooms at the Grand Wailea Resort. On a hunch, I tried the same login credentials on the hotel website. Again, success. I found their reservation too, connecting Ocean View Suites for 8 nights, total cost just over $11,000. Without allowing myself to reconsider, I canceled that reservation too. Finally, I checked for rental car reservations. I tried the 3 major companies before finding their booking with Hertz, a luxury SUV for the duration of their stay, another $2,000, canceled. In less than 30 minutes, I had dismantled the entire vacation they had spent months planning. The vacation they had deliberately hidden from me. The vacation that symbolized my exclusion from the family. I logged out of all the accounts, cleared my browser history, and shut down my laptop. It was 3:45 in the morning. My tea had gone cold untouched. I carried the mug to the kitchen, poured it down the drain, and returned to bed. Sleep didn't come. I lay awake alternating between vindication and panic. What had I done? Would there be legal consequences? Would this finally sever whatever tenuous connection I still had with my family? Did it matter if they never wanted me anyway? By 6:30, I gave up on sleep and got ready for my shift at the hospital. I turned my phone to silent before leaving, not ready to face the fallout that would inevitably come once they discovered what I had done. I focused intently on my pediatric patients that day, finding solace in caring for others when my own emotional state was in such turmoil. Checking vitals, administering medications, comforting anxious parents. The familiar routine was grounding. 7-year-old Zach, with his broken leg, made me laugh with his elaborate stories. 14-year-old Mia, recovering from appendicitis, asked me to help with her math homework. 4-year-old Ella, battling leukemia, wanted me to read her favorite book for the 100th time. These children and their needs anchored me through the storm I knew was brewing. My phone, silenced but visible in my pocket, began lighting up around 11 in the morning. Texts, calls, voicemails, all from family members. I ignored them all, focusing instead on tiny Lucas, who needed his breathing treatment. Whatever chaos I had unleashed would have to wait until my shift ended. My shift ended at 3, and I finally looked at my phone in the locker room. 27 missed calls and 43 text messages. My father had called 15 times alone. I listened to his first voicemail, my hand shaking. "Amber, what the hell did you do? The airline just called to confirm our cancellation. All of our reservations are gone. Call me back immediately." His voice was a roar of anger, exactly as I had expected. The next message, left an hour later, was even more threatening. "If you don't call me back in the next hour, there will be serious consequences. Do you have any idea how much money you've cost us? The flights are almost double the price now to rebook. This is theft." My mother's messages were tearful, expressing shock that her sensible daughter would do something so vindictive and childish. Ashley had texted a string of expletives, followed by thanks for ruining everything as usual. Travis, surprisingly, had only sent one message: "We need to talk. This isn't the way." I drove home in a daze, unsure what to do next. Part of me wanted to call and apologize, to try to explain the hurt that had driven me to such an extreme action. Another part wanted to stand firm, to force them to acknowledge how their treatment had affected me. I had just unlocked my apartment door when my phone rang again. It was my father. Taking a deep breath, I answered. "Amber Sullivan, you have exactly 5 seconds to explain yourself," he barked, without preamble. "I think you know why I did it," I replied, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. "Because you're jealous. Because you're spiteful. Because you're determined to ruin everything for everyone else if you can't have your way. Because I'm your daughter too," I said quietly, "and it hurt to be excluded. Again. So you cost us thousands of dollars and ruined a vacation we've been planning for months. How does that make you anything but selfish? You'll get the money back. The refund is already processing. The prices have skyrocketed. We can't rebook at the same rates." "I'm sorry about that," I said, and I was, partly. "But maybe now you understand how it feels to have something you've been looking forward to suddenly taken away." He exploded, then calling me names I'd never heard from him before. I held the phone away from my ear, letting his rage wash over me without penetrating. When he finally paused for breath, I spoke again. "I've been excluded my entire life, Dad. This trip was just the final straw." "That's ridiculous. You've always been included. Name one family trip I've been on in the last 10 years. His silence was telling. "You can't, can you? Because there hasn't been one. I see the photos, you know. Florida, Colorado, New York. Always the four of you sometimes with Travis's wife. Never me." "You moved away," he said defensively. "So did Travis, but he still gets invited." "That's different." "Why explain to me why it's different?" He couldn't or wouldn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "Your mother is devastated. She's been crying all day." The guilt tactic that had worked on me countless times before, but not today. "I'm sorry she's upset. I've been upset too every time I discover another family event I wasn't included in." "This conversation is pointless," he finally said. "We'll discuss what happens next when we see you." "What does that mean?" "It means we're driving to Chicago tomorrow. We're going to sort this out in person." The call ended, leaving me in a panic. They were coming here. To my small apartment, I called Jordan immediately, who offered to come stay with me for moral support, but I declined. This confrontation had been brewing for 28 years. It was time to face it head on. I spent the evening cleaning my apartment obsessively, as if a spotless home might somehow deflect their anger. I rehearsed what I would say, trying to find words that would make them understand the lifetime of hurt behind my actions. They arrived at 11 the next morning, all four of them, my parents, Travis and Ashley. They had left Travis's wife Laura at home, perhaps sensing this needed to be immediate family only. I buzzed them in, standing nervously by my open door as they trudged up the stairs. My father entered first, his face red with barely contained fury. My mother followed, eyes swollen from crying. Travis looked uncomfortable, while Ashley glared at me with open hostility. "Please come in," I said formally, as if they were strangers. In many ways they were. They filed into my living room, my father and Ashley sitting on the couch, my mother taking the armchair, and Travis choosing to stand by the window. I remained standing as well, feeling oddly like I was on trial. "Explain yourself," my father demanded, without preamble. I took a deep breath. I think my actions made my feelings pretty clear. Being excluded from the family vacation hurt me deeply. "So you decided to ruin it for everyone," Ashley snapped. "I decided to make you understand how it feels to be left out," I corrected. "To have something you're looking forward to suddenly taken away." "That's not the same thing at all," my mother protested. You weren't having something taken away because you were never part of the plans. Her words, though, not intended to be cruel, cut deeper than anything else could have. She had just confirmed exactly what I had felt. I was never part of their plans, never considered, never included. That's exactly my point, I said quietly. I'm never part of the plans. I'm never considered. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To know your family actively decides to exclude you? You're being dramatic, my father dismissed. We don't exclude you. Really, I walked to my laptop and opened it, turning the screen to show them. These are screenshots of family events I wasn't invited to over the past 5 years. Thanksgiving, at Aunt Judith's, Travis's promotion celebration, Ashley's gallery opening, the trip to Florida, the ski vacation in Colorado, Christmas 2 years ago when you told me everyone was too sick for visitors, but somehow managed to host 20 people for dinner according to the photos Uncle Rob posted. They stared at the screen in silence. You've been stalking our social media, Ashley asked, finding the least relevant detail to focus on. I've been seeing the evidence of my exclusion, I corrected, and trying to understand why my own family doesn't want me around. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. We've always loved you. Love isn't just a feeling, Mom. It's actions, it's inclusion, it's consideration. When's the last time any of you asked about my life, my job, my friends, my dreams? When's the last time you visited me here? The silence was damning. You've never seen my apartment before today, have you? I've lived here for 3 years. Travis shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we have been thoughtless, he admitted, the first acknowledgement from any of them. My father shot him a look of betrayal. Don't you start. She sabotaged our family vacation out of spite. She accessed my private accounts without permission. That's practically illegal. Is it? I asked calmly. You gave me your password last Christmas. I didn't hack anything. You knew damn well you weren't authorized to cancel our reservations. And you knew damn well how much it would hurt me to be the only family member excluded from the trip. Ashley stood up suddenly. This is getting us nowhere. The real question is, what are you going to do to fix this? We've lost thousands of dollars because of you. I looked at her steadily. I'm not going to fix it. The money will be refunded to Dad's credit card. If you want to rebook, that's up to you. You selfish bitch, she spat. Ashley, my mother gasped. No, Mom, she needs to hear it. She's always been jealous of me and Travis, always playing the victim. Poor Amber, so overlooked, so mistreated, it's pathetic. Her words hit hard, but I refused to show it. Is that really how you see me? As jealous and pathetic? What else would you call this? My father demanded, gesturing around, as if my entire life was a disappointment. I call it finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of being treated as an afterthought. If you felt that way, you should have said something my mother said. Would it have made a difference? Would you have included me in the Hawaii trip if I had asked directly? The silence gave me my answer. That's what I thought. You've made it very clear where I stand in this family. I'm not going to apologize for finally making you feel a fraction of the exclusion I've felt my entire life. My father stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're leaving. Don't expect to hear from us anytime soon. Richard, my mother, protested weakly, but she stood as well. No, Margaret, she's made her choice. If she wants to cut herself off from this family, so be it. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound startling all of them. Cut myself off? You can't exclude me more than you already have. That's the whole point. Ashley grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Have a nice life, Amber. Don't bother coming home for Christmas. Travis lingered after my parents followed Ashley out. This isn't right, he said quietly. Any of it. No, it's not. I agreed, unsure if he meant my actions or their treatment of me. I'll talk to them, he promised, before leaving as well. The moment the door closed behind them, my knees gave out. I sank to the floor, tears flowing freely for the first time since they had arrived. The confrontation had gone exactly as expected, and nothing like I had hoped. There had been no moment of realization on their part, no acknowledgement of the pain they had caused, no apology or promise to do better. Just anger, blame, and ultimately dismissal. A knock at the door startled me. For a wild moment I thought perhaps one of them had returned to reconcile. Instead, I opened it to find my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, looking concerned. I heard shouting, she said. Are you all right, dear? I wiped at my tears. Family drama, I explained weakly. She nodded knowingly. Family can hurt us more than anyone else because we expect more from them. Come have tea when you're ready. Sometimes an outside perspective helps. I thanked her and closed the door, touched by the kindness of a near stranger when my own family had shown so little. Perhaps family wasn't just about blood, after all. The day after my family's confrontational visit, I returned to work in a fog of emotional exhaustion. I went through the motions of checking vitals, administering medications, and updating charts, but my mind kept replaying the harsh words exchanged in my apartment. My supervisor, Susan, noticed my distraction during our morning huddle. Amber, are you okay? You seem off today. Just some family issues, I replied vaguely. She squeezed my shoulder. Take your lunch break on time today. No skipping. You need to take care of yourself, too. I nodded gratefully and tried to focus on my patients. 7-year-old Zach with the broken leg was being discharged, and his excitement was contagious. 14-year-old Mia had finally turned a corner with her appendicitis recovery. Little Ella wanted me to read her favorite book again. Their needs anchored me throughout the morning. During my lunch break, I checked my phone for the first time since starting my shift. Among the usual notifications was a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. I listened with growing alarm. Miss Sullivan, this is Howard Brennan from Brennan Legal Services. I've been retained by Richard Sullivan regarding the unauthorized cancellation of his travel arrangements. Please contact our office immediately to discuss this matter before we proceed with formal charges. My hands shook as I ended the voicemail. Formal charges. Could they actually sue me over this? I immediately called Jordan, who had gone to law school before switching to social work. They're bluffing, she assured me, after I explained the situation. You used a password he gave you. It's a weak case at best. But let me call a friend who specializes in this area, just to be sure. 2 hours later, Jordan called back with better news. My friend says, it's a gray area legally, but likely not worth pursuing for them. You didn't steal money. The refunds went back to his card. At worst, it's a civil matter about the price difference for rebooking. He thinks it's just intimidation tactics. Despite this reassurance, the legal threat hung over me like a dark cloud. I decided to consult with a lawyer of my own using some of the money I'd saved for the Hawaii trip. The consultation cost $300 I could barely afford, but the peace of mind was worth it. The lawyer, Maria Gonzalez, confirmed Jordan's assessment. This is more of a family dispute than a legal one. If they pursued it, which is unlikely, given the circumstances, you could argue that you had permission to access the account and believed as a family member originally planning to join the trip that you had authority to make changes. It's not clear-cut enough for them to win easily, and litigation would cost them far more than the rebooking fees. As the legal concerns faded, the emotional fallout intensified. My father had apparently contacted the extended family sharing his version of events. My phone began filling with messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins, most expressing disappointment in my vindictive behavior. Aunt Judith, my mother's sister, left a particularly hurtful voicemail. "I always thought you were the sensible one, Amber. To think you would do something so childish and destructive. Your poor mother is beside herself. You need to apologize before this rift becomes permanent." Uncle Steve, my father's brother, sent a text that simply read, "Not how we raised you to resolve conflicts. Deeply disappointed." The one-sided narrative was frustrating, but unsurprising. My family had always controlled the story with me cast, as either invisible or problematic, depending on what suited them. Then came an unexpected message from my grandmother, my father's mother, who had always seemed to notice when I was being overlooked. "Amber, dear, I don't know exactly what happened, but I know there are always two sides to every story. Call me when you're ready to talk. I love you." Her message brought fresh tears. At least someone was willing to hear my perspective. The next surprise came from Aunt Carol, my mother's younger sister, who had always been something of a black sheep herself. She called directly rather than leaving a message. "So you finally stood up to them," she said, without preamble, when I answered. "You heard? Richard is making sure everyone hears his version. But I've watched how they treat you for years. It's about time you pushed back." Her support was like a life raft in a stormy sea. "They're making me out to be the villain," I said. "Of course they are. People who are comfortable with the status quo never want it challenged. Listen, I went through something similar with your mother when we were younger. She was always the perfect daughter, and I was the troublemaker. It took me years to realize I wasn't the problem." We talked for nearly an hour, Aunt Carol sharing stories of her own exclusion from family events and the liberation she eventually found in creating boundaries. "It hurts like hell at first," she acknowledged, "but it gets better. You build your own family of choice." By the end of the week, I discovered I'd been blocked on social media by my parents and Ashley. Travis still hadn't blocked me, but hadn't responded to my text asking how everyone was doing either. Through mutual connections, I saw vague posts from Ashley about toxic people and betrayal without direct mentions of me. The following Tuesday, my supervisor called me into her office. I feared someone had complained about my performance, which had admittedly suffered due to my emotional state. "Amber, I've noticed you're struggling," Susan said directly but kindly. "Whatever's happening in your personal life is affecting your work. You've always been one of our most reliable nurses, but you've made 3 documentation errors this week alone." I nodded ashamed. "I'm sorry. I'm dealing with some difficult family issues." "I thought so. Look, we have an employee assistance program that includes counseling services. 6 sessions fully covered. I'd like you to consider using it." Under normal circumstances, I might have politely declined, assuring her I could handle things on my own. But the events of the past weeks had shown me the cost of silently bearing burdens. "I think that would be helpful," I admitted. "Thank you." 2 days later, I sat across from Dr. Patel, a therapist with kind eyes and a direct manner that I appreciated immediately. "Tell me what brings you here," she invited. The whole story poured out of me, not just the Hawaii trip and its aftermath, but a lifetime of feeling excluded, overlooked, and undervalued. Dr. Patel listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly allowing me to unburden myself. "What you're describing sounds like a family dynamic where you've been assigned the role of the forgotten child," she said when I finally ran out of words. "It's actually quite common in family systems, especially those with narcissistic patterns." "Narcissistic?" I questioned. "My parents aren't especially self-centered." Narcissism in family dynamics isn't always about individuals being classically narcissistic. It's about a system that requires certain members to play certain roles for the system to function as the dominant members prefer. Your role appears to have been the self-sufficient one who doesn't cause problems. When you stepped out of that role by canceling the trip, the system reacted strongly to push you back into place. Her explanation illuminated patterns I had never been able to articulate. Over the next few sessions, we explored my family history, my coping mechanisms, and healthier ways to address the hurt and anger I had suppressed for years. The stress began manifesting physically. I developed insomnia, grinding my teeth at night, so badly I cracked a molar. Tension headaches became a daily occurrence. My appetite diminished, and I lost 7 pounds in 2 weeks. After a particularly difficult shift, where I nearly fainted from a combination of stress and not eating properly, Susan suggested I take a short leave of absence. "Just a week," she urged. "Get some rest, focus on your health. The kids will still be here when you get back." Reluctantly, I agreed. The week off was both necessary and terrifying. Necessary for my physical and mental recovery, terrifying, because it left me alone with my thoughts and the looming question of what my family relationship would look like moving forward. During this time, Dr. Patel suggested I try journaling as a therapeutic tool. I started hesitantly unsure what to write, but soon found myself filling pages with memories, reflections, and revelations about my family dynamics. 3 weeks after the confrontation, a certified letter arrived from my mother. My hands trembled as I opened it, half expecting more legal threats. Instead, it was a 3-page handwritten letter that managed to be both conciliatory and accusatory at once. "Dear Amber," it began, "I hope this letter finds you well. Your father and I have been reflecting on recent events and feel it's important to reach out. While we are still deeply hurt by your actions which ruined a special family vacation we had been planning for months, we recognize that you must have been experiencing some pain to act so uncharacteristically." She went on to detail how they had managed to rebook everything at considerable additional expense, how Ashley had cried for days over the thought of missing the trip, how Travis and Laura had nearly been unable to reschedule their work commitments. Every paragraph contained subtle digs about my selfishness while presenting themselves as the reasonable, forgiving parents. The letter concluded, "We hope that with time, you will come to regret your impulsive actions and understand the pain you've caused. When you're ready to apologize and make amends, we will be here as we've always been. With love, Mom." Not once did she acknowledge their exclusion of me or the hurt it had caused. Not once did she question why I might have felt driven to such an extreme action after a lifetime of acceptance. The letter was a masterclass in gaslighting, making me question whether I had overreacted after all. I shared the letter with Dr. Patel in our next session. "This is actually quite helpful for our work together," she said. "It demonstrates exactly the dynamics we've been discussing. Notice how your feelings and experiences are minimized while everyone else's are centered. Notice the conditional love offered only upon your apology and making amends. This is not a reconciliation letter. It's an attempt to reestablish control." With her guidance, I drafted a response. Not an apology, but a clear, calm explanation of my perspective and boundaries moving forward. I wrote and rewrote it over several days, striking a balance between honesty about my hurt and responsibility for my actions. "Dear Mom and Dad," I wrote, "thank you for your letter. I understand that my actions caused disruption and additional expense, and for that specific consequence, I am sorry. However, I cannot and will not apologize for finally standing up against a lifetime of exclusion and dismissal. The Hawaii trip was not an isolated incident, but the breaking point after years of being overlooked and forgotten. When Dad laughed at me for assuming I would be included in a family vacation, something broke inside me. It was the clearest confirmation that in your eyes, I am not truly part of this family. I am not asking for special treatment, just the same consideration, inclusion, and love that Travis and Ashley receive automatically. Until you can acknowledge the pattern of exclusion and commit to changing it, I need to step back from our relationship for my own well-being. I remain open to honest conversation when you're ready to hear my experience without dismissing it. With love, Amber. I sent the letter by certified mail, ensuring they would receive it, but not expecting a response. This wasn't about changing their minds anymore. It was about standing in my truth and establishing boundaries I should have set years ago. No response came. The silence was both painful and clarifying. 3 months passed since I canceled my family's Hawaiian vacation. 3 months of therapy, journaling difficult emotions, and gradual healing. The seasons had changed from spring to summer, and I had changed too. I still had mixed feelings about how I had handled the situation. The method had been impulsive and perhaps extreme, but the underlying need to finally stand up for myself had been legitimate, Doctor. Patel helped me understand that perfect responses rarely exist in imperfect relationships. Healing isn't about doing everything right, she told me during one of our sessions. It's about learning from each experience and making choices that honor your worth going forward. My weekly therapy sessions had become an anchor, helping me process not just the immediate conflict, but decades of accumulated hurt. I learned to recognize patterns in my other relationships where I devalued myself, always putting others' needs before my own, never expecting equal consideration. I began building what Dr. Patel called my chosen family, friends who valued my presence, who included me naturally in their plans, who checked in without being prompted. Jordan remained my strongest supporter, visiting from Indianapolis for a weekend, and filling my apartment with laughter for the first time in months. Coworkers who had initially been just friendly acquaintances became genuine friends as I allowed myself to be more authentic and vulnerable. Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor, who had comforted me after the confrontation with my family, invited me for tea, regularly sharing wisdom from her own family conflicts decades earlier. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, she told me, explaining that the original meaning of the commonly misquoted phrase actually emphasized that chosen bonds can be stronger than those we're born into. My parents maintained their silence. I had not heard from them since sending my boundary-setting letter. Ashley remained equally distant. Travis, however, surprised me with a text message on my birthday in July. "Happy birthday, Amber. Been thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay." It wasn't much, but it was something. I responded with a simple thank you, not ready to dive back into family dynamics, but leaving the door cracked open for possible future communication. 2 weeks later, my phone rang with Ashley's number. I stared at it in disbelief before answering cautiously. "Hello." "Hey." Her voice sounded unusually subdued. "Do you have a minute to talk?" "I do," I said, bracing myself for more accusations. "So, we went to Hawaii," she said, after an awkward pause. "Rebooked everything." "I'm glad you were able to go." Another pause. It was weird. Like there was this elephant in the room the whole time. Mom kept getting teary over random things. Dad was on edge. Travis and Laura kept exchanging these looks whenever anyone mentioned you, which was basically never, but you were still there somehow, you know. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I just listened. "Anyway," she continued, "I've been thinking about what you said, about always being excluded, and I started looking back at old photos and stuff, and I don't know. Maybe you weren't making it all up. It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement I had received from any of them. I wasn't making it up, Ashley. It's been my reality for as long as I can remember. Yeah, well, she cleared her throat. I'm not saying what you did was okay. It was still a crappy move. I know it was extreme, I conceded. But nothing else had ever gotten through. Maybe. Another long pause. Mom and Dad are still really mad. I figured as much. They might come around eventually. Or not. They're pretty stubborn. Yes, they are. Anyway, I just wanted to. I don't know. Check if you're okay, I guess. The conversation ended awkwardly, but without hostility. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a small crack in the wall that had formed between us. As August approached, I made a decision that surprised even me. I would use the money I had saved for the family Hawaii trip to take myself to Hawaii instead. Not out of spite or as a statement, but as an act of self-care and reclamation. I booked a modest room at a smaller resort on Maui arranged for time off work, and for once didn't second-guess whether I deserved this investment in myself. The trip would be completely different from what I had originally envisioned. No family dynamics to navigate, no trying to fit into plans made without my input. Just me exploring at my own pace, following my own interests. The morning of my departure arrived, and I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. I had left my contact information with Susan at work in case of emergencies, but had otherwise disconnected. This time was for me alone. Maui was more beautiful than I had imagined. The air was fragrant with tropical flowers. The ocean a blue, so vivid it seemed unreal. The sunsets painting the sky in colors I had never seen in Chicago. I spent mornings hiking to waterfalls, afternoons reading on the beach, and evenings trying local cuisine at small restaurants away from the tourist centers. On my third day, I joined a beach yoga class and met Leilani, a local instructor, who invited me to join a group of women for dinner that evening. They welcomed me warmly, asking about my solo journey to Hawaii, sharing their own stories of travel and self-discovery. For the first time, I told the story of my family conflict without shame or qualification, simply as part of my journey. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people who should love us the most, said Kathy, a retired teacher in the group. But they're also the most important. By the time I left Maui, a week later, I had a dozen new connections on social media, including Leilani, who insisted I come back for her retreat the following year. I had photographs of myself smiling genuinely against breathtaking backgrounds, looking relaxed and happy. Not a single picture was forced or taken to prove anything to anyone else. On my last evening, I sat alone on the beach watching the sunset. The sky blazed orange and pink, the sun a perfect golden sphere sinking into the horizon. I thought about how far I had come. Not just the physical distance to Hawaii, but the emotional journey of the past months. The old Amber would have continued accepting exclusion, swallowing hurt, making herself smaller to fit the role assigned by her family. The new Amber recognized her worth and insisted on being treated accordingly. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but for the first time it was truly mine to choose. Back in Chicago, I returned to work with renewed energy and focus. My patients noticed the change, with teenage Mia commenting, "You seem happier, Nurse Amber. Like glowy or something." I shared selected photos from my trip with coworkers who expressed genuine interest. Susan remarked on the transformation. "Whatever you did in Hawaii, it worked. You look like a weight has been lifted." It has been, I agreed. I finally stopped carrying everyone else's expectations and judgments. I sent Travis a brief text, letting him know I was back from Hawaii with a beach photo attached. His response came quickly. "Looks amazing. Glad you got to experience it too. Let's talk soon." A tentative bridge, but a bridge nonetheless. My parents remained silent, but the sting of their absence had dulled considerably, Doctor. Patel helped me understand that their reaction was more about their inability to face their own behavior than about my worth as their daughter. You can't control whether they ever acknowledge their role in this dynamic, she reminded me. You can only control your responses and boundaries going forward. In the months that followed, I continued building my life intentionally rather than reactively. I joined a community garden, started taking photography classes, and volunteered at a children's hospital program. I created routines that nourished me and connections that valued me exactly as I was. The family story wasn't finished. Perhaps it never would be. But it was no longer the only story defining my life. I had become the author of my own narrative, writing new chapters filled with chosen family, meaningful work, and authentic joy. Looking back at the desperate act that had catalyzed this transformation, I felt neither pride nor regret, just acceptance that it had been part of my necessary journey. The canceled Hawaiian vacation had ultimately led me to something far more valuable than any trip could provide: the knowledge that I deserved a place at the table and the courage to walk away when that place was denied. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and standing your ground. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more nurturing than the one we're born into. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the strength to honor your worth in every relationship in your life.